Hi everyone, how are you? You guys are so nice to me. I I felt like okay, so last year when I had COVID, I think I've shared this with you. I got super duper sick with COVID, and I had it in my lungs really bad, so I was coughing up blood, and nothing was working for my migraine at all, and I was okay as long as I was on my CPAP. But then as soon as I'd be away from my CPAP, my SATs would drop and I could not get to the emergency room. My doctor's office wasn't letting anybody in. They told me to go, to call 911. I didn't want to do that. It was a mess. And so I did finally get to the ER one night when I was coughing up all this blood. My head hurt so bad. My husband just dropped me off. And I got there and the chick was a freaking idiot and said that it'd be 45 minutes before triage. And I'm like, I can't breathe. And I was crying, and she told me that if I can talk, I can breathe. And as a lifelong person with asthma, I knew that kind of wasn't true. My blood gases could still be pretty flubbed up. So it was just a mess, and I started crying and throwing up and blood and everything. And I called my husband back up, and I'm like, turn back around. I've got to get back onto my CPAP. They're not going to help me here. I mean, there was people just all over falling out and everything. And so I got back home and I had seen this ad for these hangover help nurses. Like, so like if you run a triathlon or you're hungover or whatever, these nurses can help you. And I'm like, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have these hangover help ass nurses come and help me because all I need is an IV. Because I knew I couldn't hold fluids and everything. It was just a mess. But I have congestive heart failure. And so these nurses were smart enough to know that, okay, that's something that we don't mess around with and should have gotten you right in to the ER, not 45 minutes for triage. What are you doing here? And I'm like, no, they would not let me in. I can't breathe without my CPAP. Something is wrong. I'm going to freaking die. I need an IV tonight. I don't care how much it costs. Please, please, please. And they were like, okay, okay. And they just asked me for a couple of quick measurements on my last heart study. So I was able to do those, and they got a doctor on their online. They were like, okay, because her ejection fraction is this much or whatever, we can give her this much, but we can't overdo her with fluids, blah blah blah. And a couple hours later, this angel came. I mean, honestly, she was a freaking angel. And I didn't know I had COVID at that time. I just thought that I had a sinus infection from hell. Did not know it was COVID because so my husband had had a total hip repair, so he had the COVID immunization from the VA, from the government itself. And my kids had theirs, and they went on a vacation, which I didn't go on because I didn't want to go on vacation where there'd be all these people because I was waiting to get my vaccination until after my annual cardiology review, which was like in September, right? So they went in August. It wasn't a big deal. They came back and they were sick, and my husband was really sick. Like I'd never seen him that sick, but he was immunized. Why would I think he had COVID? Duh. And I'm like, God, this is like the worst sinus infection ever. So this angel of a nurse comes, and and I can't stop my CPAP. My CPAP was like the big puzzle piece in all of this. And she sat down with me. She's like, you have COVID. I've seen it before. And I'm like, I can't. He's vaccinated and he's as sick as me upstairs. He wasn't coughing up blood and everything. I mean, but he was man sick. And the kids just kind of sounded like they had just a cold. And she's like, no, 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 no. She's like, you got COVID. We're gonna deal with it. You're gonna get an IV here, and then you're gonna go in and you're gonna get tested the next day. And I'm like, okay, okay, what do I do? So she gave me fluids, got me through. That first night was really the first night that it was bad. That was day 9 of me being sick, by the way. And so she got me through there, just with enough fluids that it got me, perked back up to life. So then, the next night, I or the next day I tried to go to the doctor. I told her I just needed to come in for a COVID test. And like they, would not even open up the doors. They had the doors locked and everything. And my doctor saw me through the window and she called an ambulance on me because she couldn't believe how horrible I looked. So she called an ambulance on me, and the ambulance took me down to the hospital, and it was just packed. People were just falling out all over, and it was a 14-hour fucking wait in the ER, and I was just cyclically vomiting and blah, 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 blah. I was sick. I was so sick. And I told him that, the nurse who had seen me the night before thought I might have COVID. I might be with COVID here in the waiting room. Well, they didn't care because everybody else had it. So when I finally was, brought back, they said that they'd seen a handful of people that were as sick as me and with my white count and everything, and that we had COVID-induced meningitis. And he said that I could push for that night for a spinal tap, but there was more risk in doing that than me accepting the diagnosis and going with the treatment, which was there were no beds available in the tri-state area. My D-dimer was high, which I don't know if you guys know that. So I had thrombocytopenia. My platelets were like in the 800s. I mean, I was so freaking sick. And they said, my chest X-ray is just full of blood clots, but full of blood, like bleeding, but not like clots. So I misspoke when I said clots, because it was like they could see that there was definitely bleeding in the lungs, but it wasn't like a clot that was going to throw. But my blood was so thick from whatever the COVID was doing to it. And so there were no beds in this tri-state area available whatsoever. So they told me just to, keep coming down, if I needed to by ambulance, whatever, every 12 hours for fluids. My potassium was almost at a critical low. So they had to give me potassium in the IV and everything. And it was horrible. So I got the positive COVID test so that was documented, whatever. And then I had to just keep having the hangover help nurse come over, and she was so freaking amazing. She would just sit with me, and my brain, was not right. I mean, I had meningitis. And there were times I couldn't tell between if I was alive or not alive. And she would sit on my bedroom floor with me, and she was amazing. And, she'd do my IVs all at home. And yes, it was all cash pay, but, I had to say, hey, look, we got stimulus checks for a freaking reason. That's what they are. I can't hold any fluids. There isn't any beds in any hospital. I can't keep coming down and staying on a stretcher for 12 hours. I want to be in my own bed, and I want to have my own IVs. And, so ultimately, I think I was sick for the total of a whole 28 days with it, that COVID Delta. And as it turned out, the IV nurse, she's also an ICU nurse. So she told me that was the piece that was making sense, is that CPAPs are actually little mini ventilators. And so the fact that my CPAP would keep my oxygen sats up was huge, because then if I was off my CPAP for I think it was 12, I could be off for 12 minutes and my stats would start going into the 80s and lower and whatnot. And so my CPAP was saving my life. And in the beginning of the epidemic, they found that if they could use people's CPAPs, so they were using them in nursing homes. Well, then some jackass came up with the idea that, they can't be used because they're spreading the virus into the air. Well, the people have COVID. If these are going to help, people are wearing masks. The benefit of the CPAP being used as an individual ventilator was better. You know what I mean? So that was last August. I was sick till September, and I didn't have any sense of smell or anything. And I mean, the first few months out of it, I felt like Frosty the Snowman when he came off the train, in the cartoon, and he's like, "Happy birthday." That was the way I was every frickin' day. And I'd go into my closet and I'd be like, "What a lucky lady I am that I have so many cute clothes. Wow, who dresses me?" And then my dumbass would go shopping in the middle of the night and order something that I thought was just amazingly cute. And then only to walk into my closet with my new thing and find out that I already had one. And I think I showed you guys the COVID brain with the cards, right? Where I got the same anniversary card 4 times. But, I never did give him his card. So, I tend to forget a lot still. And I have word finding problems, right? So they were really bad. So, I was just told, not to worry about it, that as the brain swelling goes down, my word finding things will come back, blah, blah, blah. So this all, goes around to the first time that I was on MM's panel. And you all heard she was not nice to me. And I thought it was because I sounded like an idiot, because I hadn't talked out loud to people who weren't in my family, since the meningitis. And so the kids laugh all the time at me. They like I said, they love this version of mom. They love COVID brain mom, because I apparently forget about things that they've done or I've said they couldn't do or did or didn't. But my early senility is just a constant source of entertainment for them as it is. So anyway, that's what I really thought was going on. I thought that that's why MM, didn't like me and didn't trust me and everything. I thought that I must be saying the wrong words and I must just be some kind of a blazing idiot, and I need to go and just put myself into a home for a while. I don't know. But then when I ultimately did start my own channel, and I mentioned that hey, this is where you've heard me before, and if I sound familiar, this is why. And don't know what happened, but I was muted and blocked. I started getting so many really nice emails from people who the same thing has happened to them, and then the other half were like raising a glass to me for being brave enough to come back after I had been treated like shit more than once. I guess that the rules of that panel are you just go, oh, and I just, like I say, I thought that, we were all going to be a group of kind of, like-minded, elevated thinking women and start a community. And we were all going to be, just kind of talking about other things. And I didn't ever imagine that it was going to be like this. And it's going to turn around on me and be like, oh my God, you're saying this about her and you're saying that. No. Nope. I'm just laying the truth and the facts out because I'm tired of all these excuses that people are trying to conjure up and everything. And I do think that I might have misspoken when I said Samantha Irwin. I think she might have said she did not like Meghan Markle. As I look back at the chat where it says I do not like her, I think that she might have been talking about Meghan Markle and not me. So if I did do that and air Samantha Irwin, I do apologize. If you did say that you don't like me, I understand. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but And then this Puff the Magic Dragon character just came on to Hot Ham Radio and was like, oh my God, do you remember that crazy chick who kept changing her names and was saying all this stuff, and either her or her sister was a dancer, and I wonder if she knew SW. I'm like, okay. So I saw this and I'm like, I'm crazy? Really? I mean, changing my name so many times. I mean, you do realize that even MM, she has 2 channels, right? Isn't one Lady Justice and one MM, right? Right? I didn't change my names repeatedly. It's just that not everybody is as friendly with the C word as I am. And that is my thing as a frickin' woman. Is because, you know what? It's like, men used to be able to use the C word as a very, very, they were used to really weaponize it. So then those of us ladies who have really taken the word into our own and really called, men and just anything, maybe a blade of grass or something, a coot. It's just, it disempowered the word. And I think that maybe there were some sheltered ladies that didn't understand. And I can't believe that Puff the Magic Dragon, that's all that she took out of my discussion. I feel like I say, I don't know, because half the time what I think I say doesn't come out right because of the things in my family is here to say, you meant to say this, right? You meant to say that. I'm like, huh? I didn't say that, didn't I? I'm kind of Frankenstein. Um, but I felt that the night that was apparently so controversial that some people want to act like they don't even know me. Um, I understand that world, and I'm kind of, I thought that, this is kind of the wild, wild west internet world where people kind of understood that that stuff happens. And I'm kind of surprised that people don't know that. You don't know what your neighbor, you don't know which house has a dungeon in it. You don't know. You would never know what suburban house is operating a house of ill repute. You'd never know. You'd never know. Let me tell you, you would literally never know. I find people to be very interesting, and I lived in Seattle and on the West Coast. I lived in Vegas for a while too, and Southern California, and I just find people incredibly interesting, and I like to know everything. I'm kind of like the Oprah of the world because people honestly tell me their whole life stories and stuff, and I love it. I love knowing about people and the ins and outs and how this would work and how that would work and whatnot. Just a moment, please. Kisses, I'm over here. Kisses. Kisses. Kisses, you're not alone. Kisses. Come here. Come here. Kisses. Sorry. My big fat mama kiss. Sometimes when everybody goes to bed and the lights are all out, she gets really lonely and she caterwauls. And she goes around with this one little stuffed animal. It's a sheep. And she goes around with it in her mouth and acts all freaky and screams. And each day we find the sheep in a different location. But when I do something like that and let her know that she's not alone, she stops. She's like, oh shit, I thought I had the house to myself. And I could sit here and caterwaul. But no, she's gonna come in. She'll probably come in. So anyway, anywho, I just can't believe how nice you guys are to me. I really appreciate it. I was really feeling like I was kicked in the coons last week. Just hearing that two people would mysteriously not know who I am. Like, I don't care if you don't like me or whatever. Just be like, oh yeah, well, she started her own channel or something, I heard, or good luck to her, or whatever. But the fact that two people said that they did not know me means that they had talked about me and they decided that was their cover story. I mean, I don't get it. Like I say, because if I shock the shit out of them, then why is everything that I said being repeated then by somebody on it? I don't get it. So anyway, with us moving forward, I better do this right now, okay? My channel is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I hope that ultimately it'll be a teaching opportunity. I am not mom shaming. I am advocating for those that cannot advocate for themselves. I do address potentially abusive and harmful behavior. I do that to prevent future abuse, and this may serve as a trigger warning to you as well. If you are a person who is especially sensitive to hearing those things, please know that this is probably not the right channel for you. I do so in an advocate way. I do so because I am coming from a place where I grew up with extreme child abuse, and so I am able to identify some things that maybe others can't and won't. And I won't stand down when I believe that there is child abuse that is being brushed over. And the people who I do discuss have put themselves out on public forums, and as such, they have made themselves public figures. When somebody becomes a public figure, they are open to discussion and sometimes scrutiny. With that being said, I do talk about Watts Island a lot, okay? So, on my channel, there are definitely truth warriors, my TWs. Where are my TWs? Holla! Holla, truth warriors. And then there is not to be any twats, okay? So if you're a fucking twat, just go, okay? No twats on Watts Island, okay? Just go. I'm sure that MM has a live for you to listen to. And with that being said, my cat not caterwauling. Okay, so we're gonna do something that's almost similar to like Mad Libs because I don't want to get sued. Okay, believe me, I don't have anything to sue for. What are they gonna do? Sue me for my student loan debt? Want to take it? Like I only got like $120,000 student loan debt. If you want to sue me for that, that's all I'm worth. So I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you how it fits into what we talk about. And as you're all students of Tabitha Jane After Dark, you're going to be able to figure out some things by the way that I'm going to leave some blanks in, and you're going to figure this out, and it's going to be bombshell tonight, Nancy Grace style, okay? Okay, so let me tell you about this. Have you guys all seen this chick named Dre McRae? Well, if you haven't, you are missing out because she is one of the #1 trending stories. Now, I'm going to tell you this also. Okay, I was really doing a lot of videos last week. I was really in an upward trajectory, and the story of missing Kylie Rodney hit. And there are very talented creators out there that have access to information and resources and ways to connect people that I certainly don't as a newbie. Okay, so I knew it was my time to step down and out of their way so that these creators who could really get the information out had the lines cleared. That if I saw something that I could share about Kylie, then I would share. And I did put that on my community post. Now, I think that Plunder, I think she does the best deep dives, and she was really, I feel, the one really leading the path as far as getting her whole story out and whatnot. Now, as somebody who used to party that way at that age, I don't believe that there's foul play. If somebody believes there's foul play, that's totally cool. You know, there's lots of different ways for this to go. In my small town, it was an abandoned military town, and so we actually had these old missile silos, like literal missiles were in them during World War II. And when the funding went and the military left and everything, those were abandoned. And every year or so, you'd lose somebody in the missile silo. Because, you know, when you're between the ages of 16 and 22 getting drunk, you think it's a really good idea to go and climb inside of a missile silo. Somebody's going to drop in. It's a far drop. Whether or not anybody's going to see you, hear you. Don't know. So that happened, and then there was this like horribly dangerous like spillway, and it was like before it would go into like this like dam, you'd have to like kind of like foot surf down this cement thing and grab onto this cord, but not the electrical wire. And if you didn't, you were like sucked into this thing, and several people died that way. And then there was the sand dunes, and people would go out there, and I mean, they would race them and whatnot, and they'd flip trucks, and people lost their lives that way, and people got lost for days out there. I think that red-haired guy, always those redheads, they get lost. They put guinea pigs in their pants. Oh my God, he was lost for like a whole freaking week out there in the desert. So because of like me knowing the dangerous, crazy ass shit that goes on in the West Coast when you party, I just think that she was at a party and thought she was fine to drive and drove into the lake. It's so sad. And when I saw the look on her mom's face, like I said, I was like, okay, I'm standing down, standing back. Let these channels be clear. If I can do anything, post something on my community post, I'm doing it. But until all of the people who are there need to do that. And I think it's really cool that group, Adventures with Purpose, was able to find her. I mean, from what I understand, the sheriff's department had ruled that body of water out. It was 14 feet of water. I think they said, no. And so then that, leads to conspiracy theories. And that's a problem, is that what a lot of people don't understand about law enforcement is it's not often a conspiracy theory. It's ignorance. And then you break it down. Is it ignorance or is it lack of resources? That they have all these people because, we're looking for this beautiful blonde hair, blue eyed girl, but there were several people went missing that weekend and we don't even know their names. The missing white girl syndrome, very much at play. But like I said, it was time for me to stand down, and then my rotator cuff drama. So I just kind of, stood back a little bit, and then I was getting all these emails, like I say, of hearing this and whatnot, and just enough emails. I was like, I got to set the record straight. Here's this and whatever. So anyway, the next biggest story is about this chick named Andrea McCrae, and her husband, Marvon Jackson. So she is this freaking magic makeup artist. That bitch looks like Mother Goose in the morning and looks like Marilyn Monroe by the time she comes out of her bathroom. I mean, the things she can do with makeup, she is Hollywood level, okay? And so she would do like, okay, so her husband, Marvon Vaughn, was a 21-year-old Marine. Got out of the Marines when he was 21. You see him looking, just fine as hell in his Marine uniform. And she was a single mom with 2 girls. And I believe she lived with her mom. And family's very important to her. She is Jehovah's Witness. Oh, I should tell you guys another Jehovah's Witness. Oh, I'm going to put this I'm going to put an asterisk and tell you guys maybe another story about Jehovah's Witnesses. Anyway, she's very Jehovah's Witness. Like, every other word is about how Jehovah is helping her. Because she does not say the word Jesus. Like I troll for Jesus on my other channel. No, this is about Jehovah. Okay, so anyway, she had all of this stuff online called the Slay Mafia. Because you slay with Dre, you put on your makeup and, so she'd put on her makeup as she was going, she'd do her hair, she, would make these characters up, like she would dress herself up like an old woman and make, Vaughn look like an old man, and they were Pearl and Earl or whatever, and they'd act like they're this old couple that can't get enough of each other, and they're getting it all, and I mean, it's just fucking hilarious, right? And so she was overweight. I'm overweight. I'm not saying nothing about that, but she was overweight. And she looked really pretty when she was all done up with him. And I mean, they were just in freaking love, that kind of love that just oh, you just want to eat that person. Just go, God, they were just infatuated with each other. She loved him. And it appeared that he might have loved her too, but he just was not that open with his emotions. He's a Marine. He's going to be a stoic Marine, right? But that girl was in on it and she wanted him. Oh, and honestly, like anything that he said, and she was freaking hilarious. She is hilarious. And so she decided, well, I think one came before the other because here's the thing. Okay, so here we're going to play like Mad Libs. Okay, so you know how like we talk about MLMs, right? We talk about MLMs. So she's a hun, okay? She's a hun. She's got a whole ass room of jewelry that sells for $5. And Lady Gaga has a song named okay, I don't want to get sued, so I'm telling you guys this so you guys can kind of put this together, okay? So she sells MLM, she sells this jewelry. She's got this whole big ass room full of this jewelry, okay? This jewelry that says it's lead and nickel free, okay? Get it? Wink, wink. So, part of her thing is this. She's got this freaking slave mafia or whatever that they're in her group for $9.99 a month. So like $10 a month, and she's got 999 people in that a month. So I mean, I was like adding that up. I'm like, is that 999? Oh, whoa, what? She's making like what? What? She makes that, and like she hasn't given him content in 3 months because something has happened, which I will get to. She's making like that kind of money there, and that's not even talking about the super chat and the money that they've given her and everything. So anyway, here she is. So she goes on and has a baby because she can't get enough of this man, and they have this little baby named Raza, cute little boy. He's a busy little boy. He's got 2 big sisters. And she's online all the time. I mean, when we talk about SW being online all the time, oh, no. Like, basically, Dre has basically the equipment of Big Brother in her house. Like, I mean, you can watch them eat dinner for 5 hours, her cook for the 8 hours. I mean, honestly, it's about food. It's about makeup, and it is 24-hour content. I mean, the Slay with Dre Mafia, they love her. She's very, very charismatic. She's funny, really funny when you look at some of the stuff in the beginning. So what had started to happen was her daughter started having seizures. And the mom started having seizures. The dog started having seizures. And Vaughn started having seizures. So and you're like, well, it could be a family thing. Oh, no. Remember, she came into this as a single mom with 2 little girls. Well, they were not that little. I think they're like 10 or whatever. So, of no blood relation, the grandma and the granddaughter would be blood related, but they're not blood related to the dog. And Vaughn is not blood related to either of them. So you've got the mom, the dog, the daughter, and Vaughn starting to have seizures. Okay? All of a sudden. And all of the workups on everything. Here you go. As I'm doing the tea, I'm drinking my tea here, okay? So anyway, Vaughn, as he is military, or out of the military, so he's a vet. I went to the VA. VA couldn't find anything. And so she says, you know what? we've got to lose weight. We've got to take control of our health. We've got to do this. And I mean, and this chick is intense. You know, she is just absolutely intense. And people label her all of the things that they label SW. They call her Munchausen. They call her narcissistic. They call her, you know, crazy. They call her, you know, whatever. And I posted the things on there, and I probably said the same things because I'm watching all this stuff with her. And I'm going, this chick is batshit crazy, you know. And Munchausen, I don't know. I haven't seen enough in that right there, but I do see some really weird things because so she started following this Dr. Sebi. Okay. Now, students of mine, Dr. Sebi. Well, what do you want to know? This asshole's practicing medicine, and of course, he doesn't have a license to practice medicine. What's that? 101 in Hunville. A doctor that's not a doctor, that's practicing that he's a doctor, telling you to do all this shit, but he's not a doctor. And so he had gotten charged with practicing medicine without a license, just like our buddy who was selling the snake oil, you know. Okay, so anywho, she still gets all up in this Dr. Sebi stuff, and basically, apparently, Dr. Sebi and does not get along with mucus at all. You know those commercials where they have the Mucinex family and the Mucinex grandma and the Mucinex grandpa, and they're all sitting around, their booger asses and everything, and they all are sitting there, and then the Mucinex comes in and gets rid of them. Well, Dr. Sebi is Mucinex to mucus, because apparently his theory is that everything that you eat that is not a plant based is going to create mucus. So you eat a noodle, it's going to make a bunch of snot around your heart, and snot around your heart is going to make it so that you can't live to be 1,000, because Dr. Sebi's theory was that our bodies are made to live forever, that there's really no reason that they, you know, should shit out at the age of 75 like they do. That if you stop eating mucus producing food and change your diet all to alkaline, then you're not going to have any mucus in your body. And I mean, she was saying her shit doesn't stink, all kinds of stuff. There's just no mucus in her at all. And I mean, this chick slimmed the fuck down. She is thin now, very thin, to where she was, you know, she was pleasantly plump before, and she was pretty each way. And so she did this because she thought, okay, we're going to cure these seizures. We're going to cure these seizures and lose weight because we're going to change our whole entire diet, and we're going to do this. And so then she got these like jumbo ass bags of all of these tinctures and teas, and I don't know how you afford it, because like I can't even go to the grocery store and get like a little thing of cinnamon these days. And she's got these like Costco sized things of passion flower and lavender and chamomile, and I'm just saying like some simple ones, because I can't even name off all the ones. I mean, she has the witch's brew. So what she was talking about was that she was getting ready to give Vaughn his foot bath. So she was soaking him in these freaking herbs, and she couldn't remember one herb from the next. So she got these, you know, containers made from the Dollar Tree or whatever, and one was for each foot, and she was sitting there doing all this and then brewing the water in only glass because she doesn't want anything silver or metal touching, you know, nothing with anything. And she was, I mean, seriously, brewing witch's brew with no freaking recipe on what frog's part you needed. I mean, just putting all this shit in, and then making him soak in it at his feet. At the same time, she's brewing him some tea with all of it. At the same time, she's drawing a freaking bath for him to soak in. And so, all herbs are not good. Just because something is natural does not mean it is not harmful. Foxglove, great example. Make your friend a foxglove tea. They won't be your friend anymore, and they may not even be alive. Okay? Foxglove is what is makes a heart drug called digitalis, foxglove. What was that movie, White Oleander? Oh, and then her son, Raza, was all like, oh, yeah, well, I want those little things you give me. I want my passion flower. And she's like, oh, you only get that sometimes. Sometimes when you need to sleep. And he's like, I get it every day. So she's like giving the kid the passion flower pills, and he's not that big. So anyway, shit starts to get real. They're losing weight and everything, but Drayvon starts getting really depressed, really out of control. Sounds like he's having delusions. The fights that were being recorded and that are online are definitely something that if they were overheard by Child Protective Services, they would have definitely intervened and been very concerned, because in these fights, they're very, very intense. She is an intense woman. She's very, very direct and controlling, which she started her own cult, basically. She needed to be, but in that, he was threatening to unalive himself. And he said in front of the kids that he's not going to be here in the morning. And just acting, kind of whack. And she felt it was whack. And so she decided, hey, well, on top of the Ativan for your seizures and everything, why don't I add some more of this and this and this in your soak, so that then you won't be such a crab ass. And you'll straighten yourself up, and you won't be saying things like you're going to unalive yourself. Being like, what, right? Oh my God. So it's just craziness in the home. Well, she starts, just really cooking up and cooking these soups, and just, I don't know, they're like these things that apparently they're mushrooms, but they're like shaped like a dandelion. So like the stem of a dandelion is these kind of mushrooms, but they have like the border of horse shit in the bottom of them, and you have to like cut that part out, and then that was like the supposed noodle part of the soup. And I just felt sorry for these kids trying to eat this nasty slop that, oh my God. And watching her, she'd then like film him after he was all dosed up with her food and herbs and everything, and he's all, his eyes are rolling in the back of his head and everything. She's like, oh baby, you like my food? Yes, why do you like my food? What's the matter, baby? And he's like, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And if he's saying things he's going to unalive himself, he could be on like an antidepressant, which some are MAO inhibitors, and a lot of herbs and like things in your diet and stuff can be dangerous with that. So like you can't mix St. John's wort with an MAOI. You can't drink grapefruit juice with certain medications. I mean, just all this stuff. And she was doing that too, grapefruit juice, just every bizarre thing. I don't see how she affords it. I mean, but I guess if you're living with your mom, all kind of together in a big unit, kind of how families used to be. She is from Mexico and her mom is from Mexico. And so she has that really deep family. Like she says, her kids, are graduating from Slay University. Because she's teaching them to not accept, shit. That, Slay is the way. As I'm dishing the tea, I'm slurping the tea. Anyway, he's getting sicker. I don't know all of what was going on. I guess something was going on with his kidneys and everything then. And he started staying away from the house. And I don't know how long, whatnot, but I think he was staying in a motel with his depression for a little bit. I think that was one of the things that was going on. I don't know how long or anything with that. But I think that, she was being responsible in that he needed to work some things out. Now, he was a adopted by his grandmama. So he talks about his stepfather being a very angry and abusive man. And he talks about his, kind of coming from a bigger natural family, and his own mom kind of didn't want him, and so grandmama is his grandma, and that's who like his mama is. So when he talks about his mom, like that's one who raised him was the grandma. Now, one of the things that they did show was before the incident I'm going to talk about happened, he did call. He was like playing a game or something, and one of his brothers got on the phone, and then he was able to talk to his sister and I think her kid or something that he used to really like. And then he talked to the grandma, which was his mom. But there was still a lot of friction between bio mom and stuff like that. So that kind of plays into this later. So he's home. I don't know, kind of how that dynamic was, but she went outside to go and check on him, and he had tried to unalive himself in the shed. And she had the sense in the moment to tell the kids to go inside. I believe that they were coming out, because I do remember her saying something like that. And I was like, wow. And so she called 911, and they came. They advised her to do CPR, and she cut him down. She cut him down herself, and she got a chair and cut him down. And he didn't have a pulse when she first got him down, and she really, gave it all that she could. She said, with the CPR, and the medics came and worked on him, and they got a pulse, and she said they put some medicine in his heart. So I don't know if they is it adenosine, what they put in the heart. I don't know. I don't know if they were just able to shock it, but his lung did collapse, so he was without oxygen for that long. What originally was stated is she said that he was in the hospital, and all of her mafia assumed it was from another seizure because they were, becoming more and more frequent. Now, ultimately, I think it was 3 weeks later where she did, talk about, and more in frustration, is that she's saying that everything that you watch on TV, is said for a reason, because she was watching this Rescue 911, and they had this kid who was in this terrible accident, and they told the parents to, disconnect him. And this kid ended up, making a full recovery, blah, blah, blah. So she really felt that that was speaking to her, in that the doctors are saying this, that they want his organs, and she's saying, that, she sees improvement in him, that she can tell the way that he's responding, that she believes that Jehovah has set his body up to heal, and she puts water in her mouth and swishes it around and then spits it on top of his head, because she said that her DNA in the water that she swished around in his mouth and then put on his head will speak to his body. So when she showed the picture of his neck that showed, it looked like he had probably you could see it looked like, it had been tied around 3 times. I mean, the man just had this gorgeous deep honey skin before, and she loved his jawline and his neck and everything before, and she would just show, she's like, look at my Vaughn, look at his gorgeous jaw, look at him. You would always notice that he really had nicely defined jaw and just beautiful flawless skin. So to see these healing rope marks. It was really, really sad. And I think that when I looked at it a few days ago, it said that, when she put that up, she got 19 million views. Because, it was basically the build-up where she didn't tell anybody the truth of what was happening, and she didn't let his family know. So his family, the ones that she'll let the grandma talk on the phone to him and hold it up to his face. And sometimes, a tear will come out, and she thinks that's him crying. And she sings to him, and she thinks that, he turns his head towards her. And she thinks that she sees, quite a bit of life, signs of life with him. And I think she said they took him off the vent, but I think that that's kind of up in the air because I think you can still hear the vent. They did just do a JPEG surgery, so they put in a peg, that's food, so, it's not going down his throat, it's putting food directly into his stomach. So they did the peg, and I think that they took out the pneumothorax. I think that they said that his collapsed lung had healed enough, but she had them keep it in for a couple extra days. So she was like, you know what, you can't do all this to him. You need to let one thing heal. What are they doing? And there's a recording of her when she was at the VA, and she freaking lays some F-bombs to everybody in that thing, and she straight up says she is his doctor, and that they will, not do this, and they will not do that, and that he was ultimately transferred to another care facility. Now, she is still trying to feed him. So she talks about feeding him, and there's a lot of controversy on this one because she wasn't ready to go and feed him. So she called her mom to go and feed him because she was sitting there doing her makeup on camera. And and she goes in there dressed to the frickin' nines with the 8 million pounds of makeup and the outfit of the day and the hair, all curled like Marilyn Monroe style. She is in her best role as the doctor. And I don't know what to think about this because like I say, I don't want to get sued. But what I see here, and some other creators have kind of made the innuendo, and what I want to bring in here to impart to my advanced students of advanced thinking here is that some of these MLMs are MLMs for a reason, because the products that they're selling are unregulated by the FDA. Okay? So they can claim something, and it does not necessarily mean it's true because it is not subjected to the types of scrutiny and testing that something in a store such as Target or Walmart would sell, because they have people out there selling it themselves, and there's problems. As I told you guys in my lecture on the oils and how the oils had dangerous amounts of lead in them. Okay, remember that word. Remember the lead in the oil and how high those levels were. And once that was exposed, our buddy Gary, stepped down as being CEO. Well, this is where we are, students. So we're going to go back to this one book that I read from before, and it's called Understanding Mental Disorders Due to Medical Conditions or Substance Abuse: What Every Therapist Should Know by Ghazi Assad, MD. Okay, so we're going over here to this, and I'm going to read to you what I read to you before when I talked about the things that could have been showing up in the let me see here if I can do this with my signs here, with the family, especially the little girls, Bella and Cece, and because of all the oils that she was trying to put on and have them inhale and whatnot, they had lead in them. So we're going back to what did she sell? Okay. Remember, Lady Gaga has a song about it. She had a whole room full of this stuff that she sold for MLM for $5. Okay. She was a huge seller. I think, God, I mean, she's one of the number one sellers of this $5 MLM jewelry. Okay. So I'm going to read to you this one more time. So here in page 130, number 1, metal poisoning, lead poisoning. Lead can be present in water, food, air, dust, and soil in small quantities that normally do not pose any significant health hazard. However, lead poisoning can occur when the person is exposed to high levels of lead and the intake of lead exceeds the ability of the body to eliminate it. Lead can contaminate drinking water while passing through lead pipes and can also contaminate food kept for a long time in lead-containing pots. Most common cases of lead poisoning occur in children due to the ingestion of lead-based paint used on toys and furniture from old houses. Occupational intoxication occurs mostly via inhalation of lead by workers dealing with materials containing lead used by various forms of jewelry for $5. Children are usually susceptible to acute lead poisoning, which may commence in the form of encephalopathy, so swelling of the brain, kind of like my COVID meningitis. In such instances, symptoms of delirium with visual and auditory hallucinations can occur. Convulsions and coma may follow in severe cases. Chronic subclinical exposure of children has been found to cause reduction in IQ scores with academic and cognitive deficits. Symptoms of chronic exposure to lead are more common in adults, and they include fatigue, arthralgia, abdominal pain, anorexia, and constipation. Peripheral neuropathy and paralysis of various muscles can occur in some cases. Psychiatric manifestations, including depression, euphoria, nervousness, irritability, hallucinations, and delusions, can occur. What you think of that? Huh? So she had a room full of things that say that they do not contain lead or nickel. But some people, now Dre says that she suffers from fibromyalgia, chronic pain, some of the things we just described here. Okay? Now, with the encephalopathy, that's swelling of the brain, that can cause the seizures. Okay? That's where you get in the coma. Now, he's in a coma because he tried to unalive himself. But we go to the delirium, we go to the depression, we go to the hallucinations. We don't know what all was going on in his head with all of those fights that were really bizarre. Okay? So, there have been people who have sold this same line of MLM $5 jewelry that have gotten very, very ill. Because they got very, very ill, they sent off certain products that were said to not contain lead or nickel off to independent laboratories. Those independent laboratories came back and said that these samples contain very high levels of lead and nickel. This is proven. There is a class action right now starting, so if you've had a reaction to the nickel or lead, because you have bought this $5 jewelry, you may sign up for this class action that is gaining momentum. I would look into that if I were you guys. I bought some jewelry like that, or I didn't buy, we traded, because I told you I was an MLM hunt and we trade stuff. So I think I bought a few pairs and I traded a few pairs. So right away I got the telltale rash in my ears. I couldn't keep them. I don't think I kept them in for 15 minutes. And I still have part of the rash. I think it was like 4 months ago that I had the pair in. I am very sensitive to any type of nickel and lead. So these people, once they found this out, then they had to get all of that stock out of their house, have their house, professionally decontaminated, essentially, to get all of the, because that lead gets in the air and in the ducts, the air ducts and everywhere. And they're fine once that has been removed from the home. These are now becoming provable things. Now, that company, of course, does not want this getting out, so they have went after anybody that any of their Huns and sued them for talking about this. They have also went through and sued several of their downlines for talking about anything disparaging. So the fact that they went on and had their convention in Vegas during the height of COVID, and several of their Huns didn't make it, and people lost friends and people lost family members, but that company didn't care. I am looking at this now and I'm going, my God, what if this is what happened to her family? What if that is why the mother, the dog, the daughter, and her husband started getting sick and having seizures? She's living in an RV to be near him. Now, it is rumored that CPS did get involved and has a crisis plan for the family. So I think that, there's issues and it's being looked at. But have they put this together yet? If they haven't, obviously, Dre McRae is going to be a multi-million-dollar holder. I don't know that oh God, I don't know that company has that deep of pockets. There's gonna be some major lawsuits coming because, number one, if this family is damaged because of that, damn that company for their stupid lies, their stupid greed. They would tell people that they had no choice other than to go to their symposium, in Vegas. If they didn't, then, they would lose their award, their all kinds of things. Like I say, I don't want to say too much. It's certainly out there for you to explore on your own. There will be a lot more coming out. A lot more. And you just say, is this a domino effect? Is Dre and Vaughn going to be the picture of what went wrong with this MLM? Are we going to see a documentary and have this all put together? And those of us who have been listening to Tabitha Jane After Dark say, we already put this together. We already know this because we've been studying this, and we know that in Hunville, they're selling products that are really dangerous with really dangerous levels of lead, and it's problematic because when you think of a Hun, you don't think of, a man. You don't. You think of a mom with children going and selling to other moms and children. That's what I saw, mainly at the vendor events and whatnot. It's a lot of women and bringing their children and whatnot. And it's really sad to think that there are these dangerous products with high levels of lead in two of the product lines that I've went deep and investigated. So how many more are there? You know? Is it time that the FDA comes down harder on these MLMs? These MLMs are not allowed to make health claims. They cannot say that this product can help you feel this, can cure this. Did you know that? Those are all against the FTC. The FTC has strict rulings on it. I think I said FDA, sorry, COVID brain. I mean, I look at these presentations and I'm going, that's another $10,000 fine. That's another $10,000 fine. I mean, I knew what I could say and I knew what I couldn't say. I just think it's time to really expose the MLMs for what they are and just knock it off, because lives are being lost and compromised, and we've seen enough, folks. We really have. We've seen enough. So with that, what do you think? What do you think of Slay with Dre? Are you one of her slayers? Have you heard of her before? What do you think? Have you ever heard of Dr. Sebi and his mucus-free diet? I hadn't. Oh no. I don't know what to think. But anyway, what's going on in Watts Island? I haven't seen too much. I haven't seen too much at all. Other than, just the squabbling between creators. And the one thing that I hate is that when people say, well, you don't know the case. Because if you don't know who's fighting with who in this little creator zoo, no, I know the case. I just don't generally concern myself with who's fighting with who, or who might be this or who might be that. Like I say, it's kind of pointless, if you will. So what I'd like to do now is wrap it up with a second reading from our book here, Controlling People. How to recognize, understand, and deal with people who try to control you. Controlling people. Remember, we're talking about that because we're identifying the behaviors that may have led to some of the stress that could have erupted into whatever in the world happened that night in that beautiful home on Watts Island. Now, the reason why this is twofold interesting is because people really say that Dre is controlling, and they say that she is the biggest control freak. She's crazy, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they are saying that she might have tried to unalive him herself. I don't see that at all. Now, when you see her yelling at doctors and all of this is because her whole entire life is falling apart and she is losing control of everything, and she is facing the very, very realistic aspect of being a very young widow from a man she loved. So, is she controlling? I think so. Is it bad? I think that it is. I think that it starts out fine, but then it's went weird. Because in one of these videos, if you watch, like I say, it's this weird obsession with food. You guys have to watch some of these videos. It's so bizarre. She really will literally spend these long periods of time cooking this weird shit that she goes and gets, from these markets. And then the whole family sits around. And this one was like, they were focusing on it because the little boy was being a little shit because he was tired and he wanted to go to bed. It was like past 10:30. and she's losing her patience with him because she's on the phone, and maybe she's like on the phone seeing how Vaughn is or whatever, like, right? I mean, why else would she have her whole entire family sitting there staring at her at 10:30 at night when she just got done cooking dinner, which she's probably started at 1 in the afternoon, right? So she's on the phone with her big old claws, and then she stops and she dishes out the food to everybody with her bare fucking hands. Okay, and everybody's like, oh my God, I don't think I've ever seen her wash her hands. And with those acrylic nails and stuff, all that shit that gets in literally shit. Those mushrooms that she was showing with the shit in them and everything. So she stands up and she like literally uses her hands and dishes up, puts a portion of food. She grabs it with her hands and puts a portion of food on her mom's plate and her two daughters' plate. And then the boy, and people say he always gets the least portion, but I was just like, oh my God, she's using her fucking hands because she doesn't believe in metal for, like, man, I could have hooked you up for some Tupperware. I mean, have you ever seen anybody, like, stand up and, like, serve you your salad, like, with their hands, and you just sit there obediently, and they shove their hand in the salad bowl and give you a load of salad? And then she had these wieners, but she's a vegetarian, so I don't know if they're those weird plant wieners. I don't know if they were all from Venus flytraps. I don't know how you find wiener-shaped plant food. I don't know. It's kind of too much for me to think about. I don't know. But, I mean, and then when she goes to town, because, I mean, she is skinny now. You know how sometimes people get too skinny in their face and you can see their lymph nodes and stuff, and that she's kind of to that point. She can see her lymph nodes in her face and everything. And so then when she, she shovels, she shovels food in. I mean, like a horse. I mean, so she's this little person with this little bird mouth now with the lymph nodes, and she goes to take a bite like she's never eaten before, and she's just like, oh. And then, and then she goes and takes a big freaking dong bite of the wiener, and then just more of just the moaning and everything of it, and the kid is just, wanting to go to bed, and I just, like, felt so bad for him. Like, I'd give him, like, a can of SpaghettiOs long ago and told him just go to sleep. I mean, he doesn't know what the weirdness is, but I think because she's out of control in so many other things, she's trying to control the food. Okay? And then, okay, before I go to my reading, okay, so that Puff the Magic Dragon one pisses me off, saying that I was changing my name all the time. I was not changing my name all the time, like I say. MM just couldn't understand my username. So I did say, because on the other channel, they do call me Darlene. That's a backstory. So I said, you can call me Darlene if it's easier, right? In one conversation or whatever. So I was just, instead of her sitting there trying to sound it out. And I think Mia, when I was on, I said a comment, and Mia was trying to sound it out too. And I was sitting there, I was like, you can call me Darlene, right? Well, and then, like, when, I made the switch to Tabitha Jane just to make it easier for everybody, and then there was nothing connected to anything. There was, nothing. I made it very clear. It's not like I was changing my name. And, and I am not an athletic person. So to imply that with what I said that night must have meant that me or my sister was a dancer. I don't come from a long line of athletic people, okay? And I don't know how many people have actually went in and seen the talented pole dancers. And you can watch, they're just regular pole dance. There are people who wear roller skates and pole dance, and you can watch it on. I'm fascinated. I was actually quite the roller skater queen in my day. And even as recently as 2006, I was in roller derby in Southern California. So, it was before I got sick, long story. But, I mean, I am hell on wheels, but not on a pole. So I'm really fascinated with these people who roller skate on the pole, and they're just, I mean, they're just wearing clothes, like a little dress or something. Go and watch it on YouTube. Put roller skating pole dancers. And like I say, you have to be quite athletic. I am very impressed by anybody who can do anything with a pole. Um, but I did not say anything about pole dancing. That I was trying to explain the logistics, because some people would not understand how one world could cross into the other. And I was making it very clear as to how. Now, as hot ham, if you're a hammy, raise your hand. I'm a hammy. I just love hot ham radio. I think she's got the nicest voice, and she sounds like a real nice person. And she's smart too. She's able to put up these computer things. So she found these screenshots and where SW had been tagged from this place called the Glass House. That's kind of funny, just thinking about, a gentleman's club with that. But I guess it wasn't traced back to like a gentleman's club actually. It was like some kind of party thing. I don't know, but she was definitely tagged in it. And so in order to be tagged, you have to be friends with that person. So it leads you to believe that before she was married, she hung around a certain crowd that partied in that area. That it's more common than you think. Okay. So then the night that I terrified the two ladies, when I was talking about the time, it was like in, I think 2005, when Craigslist was the ultimate in, you could go and buy a stepladder. You could go and buy an antique butter urn, or you could buy a piece of ass for the night on Craigslist. And it was not a secret. And then they had back pages, and the back pages were essentially where people were reviewed that were on Craigslist, and it was very popular because of the lawsuits that stemmed from that, because people would traffic. They really got. I mean, that's the thing, is like, did people live under a rock? Didn't know what I was talking about? I mean, there was huge lawsuits that came out of the Craigslist sex trafficking thing, and with back pages and whatnot, because the other way that people would harass each other was, let's say that you are a guy and you broke up with some chick, and you guys had been doing the freaky deaky and took some pictures. Well, now he's mad because you're out with somebody else, so then he puts your stuff out there, and he puts a review of you with your pictures on back pages, sends it to your employer. Get it? So there were massive lawsuits about Craigslist and back page. So Craigslist had to really, really clean it up, because they were essentially being, an electronic pimp. So what I was saying, the way that, yes, that would fit in, because CW said he did not like something that had happened in the house that she owned before he was involved with her. Okay? So she got rid of that house very quickly. If you're just this single gal who sells detail packages, and you have a very pricey home, arguably. I think that right now it was last assessed at like $400,000. That's a lot for one single person without a college degree. I'm not saying that you have to have a college degree to have a house, so get the fuck off me. I'm saying that if you are, in your 20s and you have a house that is this, big, like, was a 4 or 5 bedroom, brick, beautiful, 2-story, had the outside balcony. There's a picture of her standing outside it, and I think it's just absolutely beautiful. You're in your early 20s, you're single, and you have a house like that, and you sell tires. But you don't own the tire shop, because when the embezzlement lawsuit came, they tried to put her in as a co-owner, and she was never the co-owner. Some odd shit like that, right? It was rumored she was sleeping with her boss, Hashim. Or Hazim. Something like that. Something with an H and a Zim. So, how much money do you think that the next time you get your tires done? I guess, you'd have to be like in a big flashy city that has big flashy cars that has, and that's what she had. She had a big Suburban, right? Or a Escalade, or what do they call it? I can't think of it. Sorry, COVID brain. There's a picture of her in it. So she's got this big black Escalade. I think it's an Escalade. She's got a big black Escalade by herself, and this big honking house, and beautiful clothes, lots of high heels, handbags. How could that happen? How could she say that, you know what, when she went there and tried to get them to build the house, they weren't paying attention to her, so she plopped down her suitcase of cash to make them listen and see that she was serious? Who keeps a suitcase of cash? Why wouldn't that money be in the bank? Right? Okay, so you take that. You take the very well-known fact that she was accused of embezzling. That's not a secret. It is implied that she tried to change the spelling of her first name to flub up somebody who was trying to look up the lawsuit. And she changed her name. She got married. Okay, she meets him. She meets CW and puts the house on the market. Goes, lives with another couple for what, a year and a half as the nanny. We know she doesn't like kids. She got the heck out of town. She was accused of embezzling. Got the fuck out of town. Could she have made enough money selling detail packages to single-handedly buy that house? We know that with her first marriage, she did not come out of that marriage with anything. I think credit card debt, if anything. She didn't, there was no alimony. There was no assets to be divided. There was no children of that marriage, right? So you go from one to the next, and you put the dots together. And you say, well, she had that quote from Samantha on Sex and the City, about if money is power and power is sex and sex is money. I don't know, whatever. It's like Sex and the City was very liberating to single women, right? And you saw that concept a lot in Samantha, especially, where she's like, what's the problem? She dated men who had money. Sex is power. That SW subscribed to that line of thinking so much that she put it on a Facebook post. With an MLM, all MLMs, they have a code of, I say not code of honor, but like an integrity code. So essentially something like that on your Facebook, that you're also promoting a product, that could get you fired. You have to be very careful about that. And that's why it's really weird, because what other job would you have where you need to incorporate every aspect of your life to try to sell the product? And you have to be careful of what you say, because one wrong thing could be seen as not congruent to what you're selling, and you can no longer be representing that brand. I mean, you are representing that brand 24/7, right? So I explained how it could happen, because you say, well, oh, she could have just been a cocktail waitress or whatever. No. Her going around with drinks on a tray would involve her going around with drinks on a tray. To make what kind of money? No money. If she worked in a club like that as a cocktail waitress, you would have all of the people who worked with her and all of the people who would have seen her as customers all wanting to run to Sun. What's the Inquirer now? Is it called the Sun? There'd be too many people out there who would know that and would want to sell this story. Okay. So then you're like, oh, well, she was a dancer. No. She's not athletically ambitious. Remember when she said that she wouldn't even run with CW, that she would like tell him to go run and look sweaty so that it could look like they both just ran, and she'd dress up and put on the tennis shoes and the workout stuff. But she wasn't actually going to break a sweat. Okay? Pole work is very physically demanding. Okay? So, no, she's not working the pole. So, the next best thing around that time period, given her eyebrows, given the fingernails, she had the look. And what Craigslist did was it basically allowed every casual escort type to be able to make a connection with a man who was willing to exchange money for company very easily, very quickly, without some scary ass pimp daddy who's going to beat you up. And it was happening all over the place with people you probably know. And then you say, well, she'd get killed, because then they'd know where she lived. No. These are married men, okay? These are doctors, these are lawyers, these are judges. These are men that want a quick Hummer and well, let's just say that some men get kind of frustrated in that they have to take you out to dinner first and pay for a $150 dinner. They'd just rather give you the $150 and let you pay your power bill, right? And there's some women who think, I don't want to stay here and eat with you because that's weird. Just give me the $150 for my power bill and I'll polish your fireman's helmet and we'll call it a day. I mean, there was a whole code. And you can look it up, and I think, do you guys even know what Urban Dictionary is? You can look up like Craigslist acronyms for sex. I mean, there's just like all these abbreviations for all these things. So these men would say they want this and that, and this person would say, I'm down to do this and that, or I'll do this and that, or whatever, right? Well, then that's what I was explaining, is that those girls, to keep themselves safe, would develop a persona of a very controlling person, to the extent that they would be cracking a whip. They'd go into being the dominatrix type, because then they get that kind of very subservient man clientele who wants a woman like that when they've had a day where they've had to be in charge of a lot of people and think too much. Then they want to pay a woman to tell them that they're a rotten, dirty piece of shit, and take their stilettos and stomp on them. Then to that level, to just being like, you know what? Get the fuck out of here. I'm done with you, kind of that. So there was ways that these women would, there was just a lot of them coming through being dominatrix types and goddesses, and I don't know, don't you guys read Craigslist when you can't sleep at night and look at this stuff? I mean, I guess I was the only one. So you see how, if she was in that whole fast cars, shiny cars, detailing packages, bitches and hoes, that nightlife, that bottle service life, everybody's happy, everybody's beautiful, and this high roller's in town and they want to take you out and whatever, and you know what? They leave $500 in your nightstand. So what? Is that man going to come forward now? No. The way that this theory works is along those lines. It's very feasible. It fits. It also fits why the kangaroos want this to just be quiet, that everybody heard the one way that it was said, and move on, nothing to see here, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. Because they don't want shame. But there's nothing to be ashamed of at all. Prostitution is the oldest profession known to man. There's nothing wrong with it when it's two consenting adults. When you have people trafficking, when you have people against their will, when people have to abuse substances to stay in the life, then that's what's wrong with it. But where I am talking about adults being consensual in an agreement, this is how she could have funded her lifestyle. Now, with that being said, I don't believe that it was a Facebook friend request from a cousin how they met. I believe that CW could have been in on the action of the Craigslist menu, and they fell in love. That she saw him as a super nice, really innocent, naive guy who would, pick the corn out of her shit. I mean, he would do anything for her, and I think he did. I think he really, really deeply loved her. And I think that she was a little bitch. And, and he liked that, hussy bitch every once in a while. But it got old because he tried to make a hoe into a housewife and it never works out. Because she liked that lifestyle. She wanted that fast, fun lifestyle that was intoxicating to her. And she found every day of being with kids and their shit and barf and everything just a little too much. And like I said, what I was saying, look, that happens. And that's when people get a nanny. If she supposedly was a nanny, she knew the concept of a nanny. And like I was talking about, she could have gotten an au pair, somebody from another country. She could have done this in a way that she still could have not had to have become abusive to the girls and drive her husband insane. And when he bucked up, she doubled him up on the stickers. I mean, when I look at that picture, I put it on my community post of him with the 2 stickers. I'm going there. I don't think that in the directions for it says to double up. This is no different than Slay McRae. We don't know what was in those patches. I have no idea. And because the investigation was botched from the second the word go was, we don't know what was in his bloodstream. There would have been no reason for them to have taken his blood. We may never know. Now, I did put up Unjustified. I really like listening to them sometimes, and they had a good panel on the other night. They were talking really good. It was just really smooth because they all don't exactly agree, and that was fine. They were still, talking, beyond it and whatnot. And I heard something, I just want to correct it, because it doesn't make sense. Because the question was posed as to why she didn't go to the doctor at all with that pregnancy. And it was said that, oh, well, she couldn't afford to. No. CW had really good insurance. He had really good insurance from his employer. We saw her going to the doctor with the children a lot. There was not a problem with insurance, and especially being pregnant, high risk pregnancy just because of her age and possibly prior health problems, blah, blah, blah. That was not because she couldn't afford it, an insurance thing. Nope. And the other person in there said that one of the reasons why she might have been getting so sick is because she had that one rather large gallstone. Gallstones in pregnancy can make you really sick, but there are people who, end up having several gallstones and don't know. So you could argue both ways on that. My question here is, if he gave her oxycodone, which he admits that he did, and it seemed NA was concerned because she said that she gave SW something that could have made her sick, where did this oxycodone come from? Because if she was 16 weeks pregnant, had not went to the doctor for that pregnancy yet, we know that that's proven. That ultrasound was not from this pregnancy. She'd not yet been to the doctor. So where was this oxycodone coming from? Was that one of the reasons she had not? I know that Bonita Barbie, I think, brought that up, is that maybe that's why she wasn't going, because she knew that she was going to pop positive because she was taking oxycodone. That will make you sick if you're pregnant. That'll make you sick. Especially not eating well, and especially if she was constipated. Opioids will make you constipated. So will lead poisoning, as we know, but so I don't know. And then with neighbor Nate, what the fuck? Because he said that SW had diabetes. And I thought that NA said that she had the diabetes too. Now, she didn't have diabetes. And if it was gestational diabetes, she had not yet been to the doctor for that pregnancy yet. And she was 16 weeks pregnant. So where did this diabetes come from? And if she had gestational diabetes, the kind that you get when you're pregnant, did she have that with Bella and Cece? No. So why would anybody think that she would have it with this one? And, I have 6 kids. I've been, pregnant 5 times. I have twins, so I have 6 out of my 5 pregnancies. It's been a while, but I do believe that they don't start, watching you for the gestational diabetes until that like 16 to 20, and you had to drink that shitty orange drink, like flat Coke. So gross. So, I mean, she hadn't had those. So where was that diabetes coming from? And then I was thinking about Neighbor Nate too, because he was the one saying that he was hearing them screaming and fighting so much in the last 3 weeks. Well, didn't his nosy ass know that she was out of town for 6 weeks? So how could that be true if he heard them screaming and fighting in the last 3 weeks and she was out of town? Who did he hear screaming? Well, on Unjustified, I think that they said that, yeah, that would have been NK, that she was screaming with CW. What were they having screaming ass fights about? That's not good for a new relationship at all. I don't know. But anyway, controlling women. A confident, controlling woman can absolutely be a proud escort, if that's the best word, as opposed to saying prostitute. There was, oh gosh. Okay, here's a show you guys should watch. I think, was it on Netflix? It's called Girlfriend Experience. Okay, so that was a big thing with the Craigslist hookerdom, is that people wanted the girlfriend experience. So they'd say, or the girl would offer, or the guy would say, I want this, I want that. Or the girl would sell girlfriend experience, $125 an hour, or whatever, or donation, because they wouldn't say the rate, whatever. And the cops never busted this. This was just on. I think the cops were just like looking at all of it too. So the girlfriend experience. So it's essentially, it's like, oh, okay, so this chick's gonna act like your girlfriend and go out to dinner or maybe mini golf or whatever, and then kiss you and act like your girlfriend for an hour or 2 or 3, for this amount. It's not like, oh, it's just this person wearing a body sock walking down the street, hanging into your car. I mean, there was so much. And so one of the things was called Girlfriend Experience. And so they did a show on it. And I was like, oh my God, it's probably going to be so stupid and cheesy. But it was really, really thought-provoking. They just really addressed some of the things in the way that escorting goes. And it went deep into really trying to create like AI experience, artificial intelligence in the last season. Very, very interesting show. So watch that. It's called The Girlfriend Experience. I think it's on Netflix. I think it was 3 seasons, if I'm right. It's been a few years. But it really, really a good show. Really, really, honestly. So at this point now, I will go to our reading of chapter 2. So we are learning about the different types of abuse. And as I say, because we're trying to get to the point of what makes a person snap. And if we say that, there was all these microaggressions going on, it could work. And so the problem here, we're in chapter 2, a difficult problem is a master teacher. If you miss one tiny part of the solution early on, it can call you to task at any moment. Nan. The problem. A difficult problem is a master teacher. If you miss one tiny part of the solution early on, it can call you to task at any moment. Nan. That's interesting. That's really interesting. So you kind of work a problem, look for the solutions. I'm a solutions-based person. I had a drink for my tea. I hope you guys have tea and a snack too. I should have told you to get one. Oh, I heard I'm taking showers with people now too. You guys are listening to me when you guys are taking your showers, and I am touched. Thank you. Thank you very much. You guys are listening when you drive into work. I've heard that. kinds of stuff. Thank you. I just love that. So like I say, we're going to have to go back to, because this is the problem when people don't understand how psychological abuse can happen. And that's why we've got to go back to the beginning and really look at this, because people don't understand abuse. And I hope to be able to help you guys learn it, so that you can help recognize it. And, we can work as a collective unit of truth warriors to identify the abuse and prevent it in the future, and maybe shed some light on what was going on in that house. So here we go. Thousands of people have shared with me the intimate details of their attempts to free themselves from the influence of people who tried to control them. This is the author speaking, not me. Others have shared their attempts to stop exerting controlling tactics against others. In those instances in which controllers became truly conscious of their behavior, they were shocked at what they discovered about themselves, and they were horrified. The wise words at the beginning of this chapter were spoken by a woman I'll call Nan, a happily married career professional, a mother and a grandmother. But Nan didn't always have happiness. Okay. Sorry. Nan didn't always have happiness. At one time, her life was in chaos. During that time, she spent many courageous years trying to understand what was wrong. While she was growing up, the people who were responsible for her had acted senselessly against her. People who were old enough to know better. People who thought they were sensible. They had disparaged her. They had ridiculed her, and thus defined her. They had oppressed her and attempted to control her. The people who treated her this way were, in fact, her parents. They called her their little numbskull. They ignored her complaints with accusations. Don't you talk back to me? You think you're better than the rest of us? Most of the time, Nan felt sad, inadequate, and confused, but she wasn't sure why. At 19, she met a charming and intelligent man, but upon marrying him, he changed drastically. In fact, instead of charming her as he had when he courted her, he put her down and called her vile names and yelled at her so much that she became traumatized and sick. She felt that if she stayed, she would die from pain, but she didn't know what to do because she was accused of causing it all. She didn't see herself as wise, nor did she know where to look for a solution. This, of course, made her task to make sense of nonsense extraordinarily difficult. In time, she found some answers. She saw the nonsense for what it was. She'd been surrounded by people who acted senselessly and who had attempted to control her. Her realization enabled her to leave her abuser and her past behind her and to create order out of the chaos. Still, she was perplexed. Why had senselessness run rampant throughout her life? Families fall apart. People fight depression or escape emotional pain with drugs. Whole industries are built around raising self-esteem and developing positive thinking. Therapies are developed to help us gain a positive self-concept, and products are sold to lighten our moods. But the problem itself, people trying to control people, is not solved. The senselessness that ran rampant through Nan's life creates chaos in the lives of millions of people. This chaos calls us to task. It's like the clamor of an insatiable beast almost at our doorstep. What is it all about? What compels it? What are we supposed to learn? Do we have a clear perspective? In personal relationships, many people have experienced inexplicable acts against them that are covert or overt attempts to control them. But even when they recognize this behavior for what it is, they thirst to understand. Why would someone want to control me? Why can't he or she see that their behavior is destroying our relationship? Do they know what they're doing? A medical doctor told me the following. My father isn't well. He's in his 80s, has a number of complications and a bad prognosis. So with my sisters, their families, my children, we all went to see him. While we were gathered at his bedside, he reminisced about his childhood and how terrible it was for him. He shuddered at the memory of the criticism and angry outbursts. As he talked, we learned that his own father had been really great with people and well liked by friends, but paradoxically cruel at home. He took my breath away. That he could tell that story and not know that he treats us exactly the same way. It was incomprehensible. No matter how we have tried to tell him, he just doesn't listen. It makes no sense. The doctor's father seemed so unaware. His behavior seemed to make no sense. Thinking of the world and his problems in it, I realized that many people have said almost the same thing. Is it human fate that we should live in a world where people are as unaware as the doctor's father was? Is it preordained? As if some people, in keeping with a God's joke, were born to build bad karma, while others were just born to suffer its effects? Since we've arrived without directions, albeit holy books abound, we make our map as we go. Don't take that route. One person warns another, look what happened to me. At the same time, we see that some people, even those committed to treating others as they would like to be treated, paradoxically do just the opposite. Who can forget the sad epic of the 90s, a man who battered his wife, cursed and humiliated her in public, saying, I treat people the way that I want to be treated. People who have indulged in controlling behaviors are often stunned when they realize what they've done. I've heard many people from many different parts of the country all say the same thing. I'm a horrible person. Some literally unable to stomach the knowledge of their own behaviors threw up. But even though these found it exceedingly difficult to change, no matter how they wanted to. Of course, none was a horrible person. They simply felt horrible. Unlike the doctor's father, they had awakened. Prior to this awakening, they'd been oblivious to their own behavior and its effects. What compelling force has gripped them and seems to have even gripped the world? I don't believe that destruction and violence are the outcome of bad karma or joking gods or jealous ones, nor are they just human nature. I do believe that there is a perspective that we haven't seen yet, one that makes sense of oppressive behaviors designed to control others and explains why, in a great many cases, people are blind to the havoc they wreak. This book presents this unique perspective. It reveals just what compels people to control others and why people who attempt to control others act as if they are under a spell. In talking with people caught up in oppressive behaviors in everyday situations, I found that while often their anguish and guilt were notable, their frustration and confusion over giving up their wayward ways were even more striking. A client sent me the following description of how he tried to control his partner by sometimes acting as if she didn't exist, and at other times acting as if her very being was wrong. Oh, gotta sip that tea. Acting like someone doesn't even exist. Tea. It's good tea. No one witnessed it because I was nice and kind to our friends, but when no one was around, I got very irrational and angry. Knowing how I acted, that I sounded crazy, I wanted to understand myself. I was always willing to get help for any problems in our relationship, but I never knew what the problem was. I feel terrible that I did these things. This is what I recall at the moment, though I'm sure there were lots more. I gave her the silent treatment and left her to feel alone and isolated. I would act cold and aloof, and then when she asked what was wrong, I would act very cold and say, "There's nothing wrong." Sometimes I'd just drive off and not even tell her when I'd be home. Even if she looked forward to an evening at home. I cut down her friends. If she asked me a question, I'd get angry. I started telling her that she was abnormal. I told her I was a lot better off before I married her. I told her she didn't know what she was doing. And when I realized what I had done, I cried a lot. I want to understand why I did it. I recall another man's anguished plea. He had recently realized that he was hurting the people he wanted to love. Why can't I take 10 minutes down the road? I just don't understand why I don't when I'm determined that I will. It was his supportive and equitable treatment of his employees. And 10 minutes down the road was his wife and family. In other words, he could treat people rationally and respectfully at work and couldn't seem to understand why he couldn't do the same at home. He'd seen himself sometime before we talked. He struggled with what he'd seen, yet felt nothing but frustration, confusion, and desperation. His intentions to be supportive and equitable at home, while laudable, just didn't seem to be enough. During his commute from work, he'd lecture himself. He'd be appreciative, polite, or at least businesslike, he told himself, but he wasn't. Why wasn't he? I have heard many similar stories, and each was, to me, a newly found piece of the puzzle. Here we go, folks, because we're trying to put this puzzle together, right? Some stories brought up a number of newly found pieces. Some gave tiny glimpses of the whole at a distance, and some enhanced the tone and color, and others revealed mysteries like a child's picture puzzle reveals objects hidden in the foliage. The picture is now complete. The smallest pieces fit. Nothing, I hope, is overlooked. I present this picture to you with the belief that it will be both clear and revealing. It needs to be because it's a map of the problem. If we can describe and name the problem, I believe that we will see its solution. If the picture is very clear, the solution will be most evident. For instance, if the problem were a knot in a tangled cord, you could see and describe it clearly. The cord goes up here, around here, down here, it's looped back and across this. You would see the solution to the problem. You would know how to untie it. Similarly, we will explore this problem so that the solution is clear. The problem concerns why people act against people, oppressing them in attempts to control them. It's important that we look directly at the problem and that we not get sidetracked. Some people taking their cue from what the perpetrators of the oppressive behaviors look like in the opposite direction for where the problem lies. Influenced by the perpetrators, these people, in a backwards way, explain violence and abuse is caused by the victim, something a person was asking for or at least partially responsible for. Or they should have seen it coming, or they created it, or they deserved it, or they wanted it. Or they explain oppression by being the work of something bodiless, something beyond the world, beyond time and space altogether. Something done by the personification of evil itself, the devil. Badness itself made it happen. But making up a devil to serve as a handy scapegoat would divert us from our search. Now, I know that we're all thinking that, CW blamed his actions on the devil. And we'll get into that at some point and kind of see how sometimes narcissism mirrors narcissism, that some of the behaviors overlap each other, they mirror each other. It like they said in here, it's a scapegoat. It avoids somebody being introspective. So, like I say, there's so much I want to tell you guys and tell you how it makes sense, but I've got to take you guys on the journey with me. So I digress. I'm sorry. I'll get back to the book here. I'm just talking about the devil. Anyway, No doubt, most of us at some time have been mistreated by others or have unwittingly mistreated someone else. Apologies and forgiveness acknowledge our human failings, but some people who mistreat us declare that they've done nothing wrong or were driven to it by us, or had good intentions, or we've nothing to complain about. These people just don't view the wrongs they do as wrong. Even the perpetrators of the most extreme acts against others do not feel that they have done anything wrong. For instance, the media reported that a letter prosecutors said was written by Timothy McVeigh, dated February 10th, 1995. Gosh, do you guys all remember where you were when Timothy McVeigh did his horrible act? I do. He stated, I might as well do some good when I can be 100% effective. McVeigh was found guilty of the Oklahoma City bombing, an attack that shocked the world. It took place April 19th, 1995, just a little more than 2 months after he'd written the letter. Okay, that's where I remember where I was at. The bombing was described as the bloodiest terrorist attack to take place on American soil. 168 people were killed and another 500 were wounded to do some good. But that's what he said in his mind. I mean, that doesn't make sense. How could Timothy McVeigh think he was doing some good by doing this? Asshole. An even deadlier terrorist attack was launched against America and freedom itself on September 11, 2001. The hijacked plane bombings of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon stunned the world and cost more than 6,000 lives. Scholars tell us that the terrorists were religious extremists who believed their horrifying acts against the innocent were mandated by God. This terrorizing unconsciousness is what we call evil. However, a strikingly similar unconsciousness is evident in even very common and less persuasively destructive acts, such as striking a child to get it to stop crying. Such acts against children destroy their ability to release their emotions, confuse them, and leave them with buried rage. I frequently hear that this kind of child battering, even towards babies as young as 6 months, is still going on. Yeah, it is. You and I know it. Disgusting. While I am not in any way equating hitting a child with a quite different act of terrorism, I am pointing to the fact that both arise from a terrifying unawareness on the part of the aggressor. And that in most cases, when people act against other people, they feel justified. They feel sensible. If an act against a person is justified in the mind of the perpetrator, it is in a backwards way said to be caused by the victim rather than the perpetrator. It is just the opposite of the truth. A second fact is that wrongful acts against people, usually bring about just the opposite of what the perpetrator's intent. Going back to our other previous example, in one case, to do some good, McVeigh does harm, and in the other, to stop a child's crying. A person exacerbates the anguish that brought forth the child's crying in the first place. If you've ever encountered a person who acted against you by harassing you, defining you, discriminating against you, or physically assaulting you, you may have noticed that the act was perpetrated against you as if you were deserving of it. Whether they are experienced as horrifying, hurtful, or simply nonsensical, acts against others have certain commonalities. Primarily, they are as follows. Perpetrators usually believe that their oppressive actions are necessary, even right. Their behavior is actually the opposite, unnecessary and wrong. Generally, acts against others, that is, attempts to control others, eventually bring the perpetrators just the opposite of what they want. Acts against others originate with a distortion or lack of awareness. Perpetrators almost universally believe that they see clearly and are aware, which is the opposite of reality. When it comes to acts against others, of what are people unaware? I believe that this is a very important question because if we can answer it, if we know what they are unaware of, we will have begun to unravel a knotty problem naughty as in a not naughty as in Craigslist, and to answer the question, why do a great many people try to control other people? I'll never forget a case I encountered some years ago. A man became so difficult to live with that his wife separated from him, moving into an apartment a couple blocks from their home. This she did after tolerating his growing misbehavior for more than 20 years. She had always held the hope that he would change, become gentle, kind, and loving, and that somehow the investment of her time and energy in all those years would be realized in a close relationship. Her husband always wanted her back, and even after 2 years hoped that she would return. With her encouragement, he decided to talk with me. During our consultation, I asked him if he knew what his wife wanted, what change, if any, might bring her back. And he said, "She just wants me to be nice to her." "Well, is it possible you could be nice to her?" I asked. "How can I be nice to her when I'm so angry that she left?" As we talked, his approach to his problems became perfectly clear. Somehow he felt that if he were angry enough, frightening her with his sudden outbursts and demonstrations of rage, yelled enough, showing her just how mad she made him, put her down and intimidated her enough, telling her she could never make it on her own, even if he hit her enough, that she would pay attention and realize the error of her ways, she'd come back. Clearly his attempt to control her is what had driven her away in the first place, and he couldn't see it. This is what he was unaware of. That doesn't mean that he was crazy. I would say instead that he, like all other perpetrators, had it backwards. People who act against others truly act in a backwards way, doing the opposite of what they would need to do to realize their goal. In the previous example, both the wife and the husband wanted a close relationship, but closeness meant something completely different to each person. Each one's idea of closeness and how to achieve it was the opposite of the other's. One person's idea of how to achieve closeness was sure to fail, and it actually did. In fact, it ended all possibility of closeness. As we continue exploring the maze of illusory actions woven into our world, we will find out why some people act against their own intentions, whether to achieve closeness or to do some good. Since all oppressive acts have a backwards quality to them, they can be said to take place in the context of backwardsness. We will find out just what that is actually backwards. Even ordinary behaviors are inexplicable unless we are aware of the context in which it takes place. Once we understand the context, we can begin to interpret the behaviors, and most important, to find out why the context of backwardsness exists. Let's first take a closer look at how important context is. If you saw me shouting and quickly looking around, my behavior would seem odd, certainly inexplicable. If you saw the context in which it took place, watching a basketball game, my actions would no longer be inexplicable. In this example, the context or broad view explains the specific my behavior. By knowing the context in which people act against others, we can begin to explain their acts. Very, very poignant. And in reading this, I think of both CW and SW. I am continually haunted. I guess I'm haunted by that day when she was sitting on the couch and she was saying that she was no longer going to let the haters hate, that she was going to move forward, be the woman that she wanted to be the mother that she wanted to be. And what you see in the background is you see him actually doing it. You see CW on the floor with the girls playing the game. He is engaged with them. You see her on the couch talking into the phone, saying how she's going to do this. She's doing it backwards. She should have put down the phone, sat down with CW and the girls, played the game, just engaged. What she was saying she was wanting, she was doing it backwards. She was still talking about it, not the doing, right? There are many, many examples that we'll think of as we go through this book. It's going to take a while. We're building the foundation because it's complex. There were many, many complex psychological issues going on in that family. Abuse is control of power, of money, of truth. And how would your husband feel if he had trusted you to do the family finances and you instead had selfishly bought nonsense so that it would score you another vacation, but you weren't paying the house payment? And you'd have your husband come home after he'd worked hard all day, and you'd look him in the eye and you'd know that you didn't make the house payment, and you are hoping to God that he doesn't get the mail, and hoping to God that by the time that the third payment wasn't met, that somebody wasn't going to come and serve the papers. Because I don't even know that her name was on the house. I'd be very interested to know that. If somebody knows that and can prove it to me, that her name was on that house, I'd like to see it, because I think it was only in his name. He trusted her immensely. He trusted her with everything. She controlled every aspect of everything in that house and every behavior. And they call him the narcissist with the controlling behavior. But we've got to lay this out. We've got to work the problem. We can't go to this nice little package that they all put together. We've got to look at who's controlling what and why. There's a lot of control going on. Let's break it up. Take it apart. One of the things I like to do with knowing people, whether for a moment or a lifetime, I like to leave them better for knowing me. And I hope that I do that in my recordings. And I hope that, I can help somebody, help a friend. I can help somebody see the situation that they're in and make sense of it, or the situation that they've gotten out of it and understand it better, or know that they're not alone. These situations that I talk about are very close to me. I've been through more than you all can imagine. And while I like to make sense of it, and I like to make humor out of it, I think humor is a great thing, and it's a great medicine. And I've had to just sit there and laugh at the shit that has been handed to me, because if I didn't laugh, I would cry. And when people want to, hash me down for laughing at this or laughing at that, no, it's not that. It's that you have to look at the totality of circumstances, and sometimes it's so ridiculous, you have to laugh. And if you can laugh, you can get some perspective. Causes you to breathe deeper, right? So, thank you all for hanging with me this week as I've been offline and letting other things take center stage, and letting my arm recover from feeling like it was jumped on, and all that good stuff. So, as we're getting ready for the weekend, have a happy Friday. It is Friday now. Have a good weekend. And I shall talk at you all soon. Thanks for listening, everybody. I really appreciate your time. It means so much to me, the kind things you guys are saying and that you're listening. I can't give you back what you're giving me. You're giving me the gift of your time. And I'm so thankful. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you haven't liked this video and subscribed, please like and subscribe. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.